Which one did you want?
Tony.
So Tony in Orange County, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, sir?
Not too bad.
I was listening to a show of your guys before about chaplains in the military, and I just wanted to talk about my experiences with it.
Okay.
I was in the Air Force for a lot of years. I joined when I was right out of high school when I was 17, and my biological father passed away right before my 19th birthday, and we were estranged. We didn't really have a good relationship, and my command wanted me to go see a chaplain, and I grew up as an atheist, and I was having a hard time dealing with it, but just them telling me that he's in a better place, and it didn't really do anything for me other than make it harder for me. I wanted to, and I told them, you know, I wanted to talk to somebody else. They kind of put a negative connotation about seeing anybody else that wasn't a chaplain.
Yeah.
And they made it seem like it would have affected my job. I don't really want to say what my job was, but you know, they made it seem like if I were to go and see somebody else, that it would jeopardize my job and promotion.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, and probably from both of us, former military, thanks for your service.
Yes.
And we're sorry to hear about the loss, but Jen's got a lot on this topic. So.
Yeah, actually, the last time we were on, it's probably the episode you're talking about. Apparently, Matt and I slaughtered somebody's sacred cow on the show, which we do frequently, and we do this unapologetically. That's right. The sacred cow is right here. So I get an email from this guy who claims to have been a corpsman, a Navy corpsman, and I won't give you any background on him because it might actually identify him, and I don't intend to do that. But he basically said that chaplains are highly trained, and we should refer people to the chaplains, and please don't, advise people not to see a chaplain because it might mean the difference between them committing suicide or not. And I wanted to address that because, first of all, there's nothing about a military chaplain that automatically tells you that they're a qualified mental health professional. Just by virtue of being a chaplain, that doesn't make them in any way qualified. This guy claims that a lot of the chaplains they had assigned to their mental health teams had advanced degrees in counseling, psychology, or whatever. And my contention is that it's that advanced training that makes them qualified to be on a mental health team and not the fact that they're a chaplain. So, when I was a commander, if a soldier came to me and said, I've got a mental health issue and I want to talk to a chaplain, I made sure that soldier got access to a chaplain. But if somebody came to me with symptoms of depression, or I thought there was a problem that this soldier needed some mental health intervention, I absolutely would not refer that soldier to a chaplain. Depression, PTSD, those are psychiatric disorders. Those need professional help. And in your case, it sounds like you needed somebody to talk to, and you preferred a secular mental health professional.
Yeah, I just wanted, just somebody to help put things in perspective. I wouldn't say I was even depressed, but, just somebody to work through it with and not have somebody tell me that he's in a better place and I need to find God that'll help me be, get over what I was dealing with.
And it may be the case, and I'm not suggesting that a recommended therapy is to go out and get drunk, but sitting around and having a drink and talking to anybody may actually be better in some of those situations. If, for example, if you're a secularist, then talking to a chaplain. Because I had a friend, I still have a friend who I love dearly, and her son was diagnosed with cancer as a teenager, and he ultimately died, I think, right around his 16th birthday or so. And she's a believer, and I'm not. And her family is full of people who believe. Mm-hmm. And when we would have conversations, she let me know that she appreciated coming down to talk to me because I was the one who would talk about pain management, talk about the practicalities of what she was going through, about what the doctors were saying, just give her a hug and let her know I'm on her side, etc., without filling her full of platitudes of this being part of God's plan or God needing another angel or stuff like that, which, and it's another example where, the fact that two people disagree on something, like whether or not there's a God, doesn't mean that they can't come together on other things. And in the position that she was in, she appreciated the fact that there was somebody who wasn't going to say the sort of things that a chaplain might say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ultimately what happened. One of my atheist friends that I was stationed with, we just went out and, had a couple beers, and, basically that's how solved it.
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need. And the other thing that happened in the course of this email situation with this guy, that I was actually not even going to give him any more attention, but he contacted Seth Andrews to complain about the email trail. It's like, okay, dude, you didn't get the answer you wanted from me, so you're emailing one of my friends to complain? I mean, that's just way over the top. But aside from that, he's out there promoting some factually incorrect information, and it's contributing to the stigma attached to seeking mental health treatment in the military. And this is just shocking to me from someone who claims to be a mental health guy. What he said was that your commanding officer can have access to your medical records, and that is not true, okay? There are two different ways of getting mental health treatment in the military, okay? One is when you're command directed, and that's your commander tells you got to go. So something about your behavior or your mental state has caused the command to take official notice of you, and they send you to treatment. And that can be accompanied with disciplinary stuff or not, depending on what your behavior was. The other route is self-referral. If you self-refer to mental health, there's no penalty for that, and whatever you do, whatever the reason for that is, the command can't take legal action against you or even administrative action against you based solely on your self-referral to mental health. So if you need counseling or whatever, that's not a black mark. And when I was a commander, if a soldier came in and said, hey, I got a problem, I need to talk to somebody, I took that as the soldier taking responsibility, and I would never hold that against somebody. That's what we expect of soldiers, that they come in and recognize they have a problem, they're going to take care of it.
It's a problem pretty much uniformly, where we have stigmatized people with mental health issues. Yeah. And that discourages them from getting help, when taking the steps to actually get help for a problem it should be laudable.
Right.
I mean, this is you recognizing that there's a problem, taking responsibility, and instead of being, ostracized or criticized, you should be applauded for doing that.
Yeah, but the other thing is that advising people to go to the chaplain with mental health issues, aside from the fact that you have no idea whether or not that chaplain is qualified based solely on their being a chaplain, okay? The other problem is that it's generally understood that when you go into the chaplain's office and you want to have a protected conversation, so something that they can't tell anybody else, the magic words are, I'm here for spiritual counseling. If you tell them, I'm here for spiritual counseling, then that's a privileged conversation, and they're not supposed to disclose that. The problem with that is that if you're actually depressed or suicidal, or you have some other psychiatric issue that really does need medical intervention, and you go to the chaplain for it, it's not documented in your medical records. So then later on, you get out of the military, you continue to have mental health issues, and you need treatment. The VA is going to take a look at your medical records, and they're not going to find that documented there. And they're going to say, you know what, this is not a service-connected disability. You can't get a disability rating for it, and you may or may not, actually be eligible for treatment for it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you walk into a chaplain's office and say, I'm here for spiritual treatment, even if there's a really smart chaplain who now knows that you need secular therapist help from a psychologist, they can't say anything, and they can't force you to do anything, and so you may have just blocked yourself from getting the sort of, they can suggest it.
Yeah, they can recommend it, but they can't do anything. And so, it's like I said, long been understood there's only, really two people you can have a completely privileged conversation with in the military. One's your attorney, and the other's a chaplain, if you say, I'm here for spiritual counseling. But again, if you have a medical issue, and mental health issues like depression, PTSD, whatever, these are psychiatric issues, and they need treatment with a qualified mental health professional, you need to go to qualified people, not to somebody who's a chaplain, and have that conversation offline. That doesn't actually help, and it actually contributes to the problem.
The other thing about this email, and I'll get right back to you, Tony, I apologize for keeping you waiting, was he said that, we shouldn't be telling people not to see a chaplain. I'm not sure that that's necessarily what we've done.
No, I don't think we've said that. I've said, if you've got a mental health issue, that shouldn't be your first stop.
If I was, giving advice to somebody, my advice would not be, don't go see the chaplain.
Yeah.
Unless there was some really good reason to not see the chaplain, like if he was, a douche or something.
Yeah.
But, offering people recommendations for other ways to deal with things and encouraging them towards treatment that might be better. By all means, if I had somebody who, was having some sort of issue and they wanted to speak to a chaplain, the words that come out of my mouth are not going to be, don't go talk to the chaplain. It's going to be, go talk to the chaplain.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not like we're saying that every minister, for example, is crap or anything like that. For example, Jerry DeWitt, his caring for people and his love for people and his advice and counsel didn't change just because he stopped being a Pentecostal minister. The type of advice that he would give now is going to be different. But, if there's somebody who's good and caring and has good ideas, I don't care if they're a chaplain or not.
Well, and that's the thing. If Jerry DeWitt were, say if we had humanist chaplains in the military, and I had Jerry DeWitt as my humanist chaplain, and a soldier came in with symptoms of, depression or some kind of serious psychiatric disorder, I would not refer him to Jerry DeWitt. As caring and understanding and as wonderful as he is, that's not the person that this individual would need. I would send them to community mental health and get them properly evaluated and get them treatment. And if I thought this person was actually suicidal, I would take steps to prevent them from having the means to kill themselves. And if that meant assigning a soldier to sit with that person 24/7 to make sure they didn't harm themselves, then that's what I would do.
We had somebody on suicide watch when I was in boot camp.
I've had a couple of soldiers on suicide watch. I mean, but the other thing that this guy is saying that is a problem is this idea that your commander can walk in and review your medical records at any time. And if you're in the military right now, let me tell you something that is not true. I speak as a former commander in the Army, and I could not walk into the troop medical clinic and look at any of my soldiers' records. If you want to look at someone's records, or if you need information from someone's medical records, you have to send a written request to the treatment facility commander's office and ask specific questions. You have to ask for specific information. They can give you the specific information you need in order to, make whatever determination you need to make about that soldier's status. What they can't do is walk you into a room, open the record up, and let you look at this, this soldier's record. This guy that wrote to me says that they routinely did that at one of his duty stations in the Navy. And in order for me to believe that, I would have to believe that these commanders were willfully violating a federal law, because this is not just a military regulation, it's a federal law, it's part of HIPAA. You can't disclose this medical information. And the second thing, I have to believe that the medical personnel there, including the commander of that military treatment facility, they were all incompetent and they didn't know they couldn't disclose this information. And I simply don't believe that commanders and military personnel or medical personnel in the Navy are incompetent like that.
And if it was happening, somebody would need to step up and we need to get some more training.
And if in fact he facilitated that, then he committed a felony, and he just admitted to it in an email here. So don't be afraid to go to the medical treatment facility and ask for help if you need help. And by the way, you have a right to know who's accessed your military records. Okay? You can go in and submit a written request to the military treatment facility that maintains your records. Ask them who's accessed your records and for what purpose, and they have to give you that list. And the reason they know is because they have to keep a copy of those written requests that come in for that information. So
well, that's good to know. I had no idea. But just to clarify, I actually just got out of the military recently, and I'm going to school on my GI Bill.
Okay.
I'm still in the reserves, but yeah, this happened a couple years ago. Just to clarify.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, if you're in the
But
reserves, be careful, because most of the violations I've found about people disclosing military records without authorization have been in the reserve units, because a lot of the clerks that maintain those records don't know they can't just hand them over to the commander.
Yeah, I don't really do it. I just got out of the active, so I haven't done much with the reserve unit that I'm in. But I really appreciate you guys giving me that information. I thought the way they were telling me at the time, it seemed like if I went and saw some psychiatric help, that they could see it. I thought they would be able to look at my records. I had no idea.
No, they can't. They can't
Well,
access.
They can do the written request thing.
Right.
And I don't know what justifications they have to give, et cetera. But.
Yeah, so one of the things I would ask, I would send a request over there if I had a guy that applied for, say, a security clearance. And I could ask if there's any information in his record that would make him a security risk. And there are actually profiles of people that present some kind of security risk, okay? Now, if a guy has an active addiction that he's being treated for, that's actually a security risk. And so the medical treatment facility commander would probably send me back a note saying, hey, he's self-referred for addiction treatment. And so I would take that into consideration as, whether to grant him access to classified information. Again, that's not a black mark against him. That's actually protecting him so that he's not put at risk of disclosing classified information. Another example is had a soldier, he was actually a warrant officer in a unit who were getting ready to deploy to the first Gulf War. The guy was a Vietnam vet, and he had actually been in a post-crash fire before we had crash-worthy fuel systems in the Hueys, and he took a bath in JP4 and had lots of burns on his body and everything. And so the question I had as we were getting ready to deploy is, can this guy be safely deployed into this environment where he's going to be, exposed to extreme heat? Because one of the things that happens when you're burned is that it can affect your sweat glands. So I sent a request over to the military treatment facility to ask him if it's okay to deploy this guy. So those are examples of things you can ask and get an answer to, but you can't just go in and review the guy's military medical records.
Well, that was one of my I needed a top secret clearance for my job, and I was worried that if I went and saw help, that they would be able to revoke my clearance and I wouldn't be able to do my job. That was my major concern at the time.
And in reality, the only thing they could do, at the local level anyway, is withdraw your access. Revoking your clearance has to go all the way back up to, in your case, Department of the Air Force.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I love what you guys are doing.
Thanks.
Thank you for your service, both of you.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Have a good day.
So that went on a little longer than I thought it would, but hey.
Sorry. We help somebody out.
Yeah.